Anyone who's all about the green energy and really into saving
If you
stuff that
voted
way.
for no plastic straws, this is for you.
Yeah, if you voted for no plastic straws, you need to get legislation that we should just get rid of junk mail. Like, I think that would get
Yep.
very unanimous support on both sides of the aisle. You would save however many trees, however much time and man hours of people having to deliver stuff, the shipping costs of things all over the place, and none of us, then we could just not have junk mail. Welcome back to the Real Estate Insights podcast. I'm joined today by Brittany Moore, Be More Organized. How's it going today, Brittany?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
I know obviously your week's been a little challenging for a handful of different reasons. The show must go on, so here we are getting into it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was a little sick earlier this week. It's
There's
amazing how much longer that lingers the older you get.
that, and it also is amazing how much you appreciate, because hopefully most people are relatively healthy. You take it for granted a little bit when things are rolling pretty well on the health front, and then you get sick for just a little bit and you're like, wow, being 100% is really nice. And so it's, if nothing else, it helps reset some of the gratitude that we get for most of the year when we are healthy.
It is actually so interesting that you said that because I thought I was like weird. I had that exact conversation, I think on Tuesday with a friend. I was saying how I felt so sick and I was really sick. And I was like, wow, I just couldn't help but think of these little kids in the hospital with like cancer and having chemo. And I was just thinking about all the people around the world who probably wake up and feel this sick every day because of a disease or something. And I'm like, wow, it really did it. It truly made me think about how grateful I am that most days I get to wake up and I feel really good outside of like maybe
Yeah.
my back's starting to hurt a little bit more than
Again,
but
there's other things that happen with old age of, wow, that shoulder didn't used to click when I would do stuff
it
or
like
whatever.
really crunches. Yeah.
Yeah, some of those things are just the way the world works and the way aging works and stuff. But yeah, like you say, like the fact that the vast majority of days you get to wake up and you're relatively healthy, and as much as there are struggles and challenges with work and everything, the fact that you get to tackle them versus being bedridden most of the time. And the same way, like when we had the ice storm a few weeks back too, it's, oh, this is frustrating and sucks. But in reality, most of the time things are moving pretty smoothly. And when you go to Starbucks and suddenly so it takes you a little bit longer to get your coffee, or there's a line at the drive-through, it's, oh, I can get food on demand now. And less than 100 years ago, that wasn't the case at all, type of thing.
That's the other thing I was really thankful for this week. I was like, oh, CVS,
Yeah.
DoorDash, okay, Gatorade.
Yeah, being sick, you're like, I don't even have to leave the house now to get some stuff done that has to get done. Yeah,
It's really sad. Whenever I'm sick, I crave ramen. And I don't mean the like expensive, nice kind of ramen. I mean that styrofoam cup from college that costs like 50
yeah.
cents. Like that is what my body craves when I'm sick.
A few years back, I saw a social media video, and this is a phenomenal way to start an organizational podcast or a real estate podcast, but I like it. I saw a social media video where someone was taking, so like the one ramen that comes in like the square cube or whatever,
Hmm.
and they,
Yep.
as apparently as a kid, they would take that and break it up and eat it like chips almost or whatever. And like that, I was like, we were relatively poor growing up, and so ramen's super cheap, but we didn't have to like eat ramen raw. Like we were rich enough to boil water. Like it wasn't so dire that we couldn't boil water. And so I was like, if you liked it too, and throw a little powder on there. It's the cheesy Doritos before cheesy Doritos. I don't know. Sounds good.
I love it. Yeah, I was more of a bean and cheese. Like I growing up, that was like our go-to. It was like, yeah, I can always at least make beans, cheese, and
Yeah,
tortillas.
exactly. Something simple. That's so good. But so back to the organizational world
Yes.
with, yeah, one of the things we were talking about off camera that is interesting, I think a topic I'd like to discuss today is just paper and trying to get that organized, right? Like it's obviously a lot of times, I'm sure when you go into homes and for a lot of people, it's organizing the kitchen, organizing a closet or whatever. But for a lot of people, organizing just their paper files and the amount of paper that we go through on a daily and yearly basis can be pretty staggering.
No, definitely. I would say there's always, in almost every single house, there's always going to be like stacks of paper, whether it's in the office, in the kitchen, in drawers. People don't have good filing systems set up. We typically do about 4 to 6 sessions per project, like per house. And the very last session is almost always the paper session, where we tackle all the paper, we create the filing systems, we go through old papers, and then we also do memorabilia. And those are people's, we found in the years, the reason we save that for last is so there's like this buildup of momentum of, okay, we're doing this, feels good. And then we save the worst for last so that it's okay, remember, it feels really good. But no,
Remember all
paper
those good
is,
feelings we have? We still want that here. We got to keep pushing through.
yeah, as soon as we get through it, it's gonna feel so good. It's like, I know you're really into fitness. It's like doing a really hard workout. There are moments in a really hard workout where you're like, this sucks. This doesn't feel good. My body hurts. I'm tired. I would feel that way if I was running a mile. It's
If
just,
it's the last day, they can see the finish line, right? Like
mhm.
it's not tackling Mount Everest on day one and then realizing you still have a long way to go. It's we have this momentum from getting stuff organized, but on top of it, the finish line's in sight. Like this is once we get this done, we get to breathe and now enjoy the space that we've gotten.
And I think everyone can relate to this that when, you can't find your passport or you can't find your insurance documents, or we do live in such a digital age these days, but there are still certain documents that you have to keep, like the title to your house or the title to your car, or there are documents that are important, your marriage license, whatever. There's something for everyone. And so when those documents don't have homes, and when you can like lay in bed at night and you're like, oh yeah, we're going on a trip in a couple weeks. Where are those passports? That is going to cause you so much stress and like loss of sleep and anxiety of where are those? They're in one or three or four mountains of paperwork somewhere. And I'm going to have to take the time to go through all of that. So having good filing systems, like not just having good filing systems, but like regularly decluttering those systems. And I think also knowing what needs to go into a filing system. We have a lot of clients who just default, oh, I have a bill. I'm going to put it in a file. And it's, did you pay it? Is it on auto pay? Do we need it? Like most banks, you can access statements online. Like you don't need to save it. So like, asking yourself, is this something that I already have access to online in some form or fashion? And do I actually have to keep it? What's the value? When am I going to go back and look in this file and utilize this document? And we have a lot of people, I think, that talk about taxes. I think that is something that we really need a class on in probably high school and college. Really understanding what do we need for taxes? Like, what do we write off? Because I see clients that just keep endless amounts of
Mhm.
paperwork thinking, I need it for taxes.
Yeah,
Like,
we'll
you
see.
don't.
And on the real estate side, we see that for, like I say, talking about classes like on taxes, like, but like understanding what goes into a mortgage, right? Like you'll people like, oh, here's because you have to include your debts when it comes to a mortgage. Oh, here's my phone bill. We don't have to include your phone bill. Like some things are worth saving for tax purposes. Some things are needed for real estate purposes. But like teaching a course on instead of just geometry or algebra, which still can come in handy from time to time, but like on some basic
Empty.
math stuff, that's the stuff that's needed for the equations, right? Hey, yeah, great. We don't need all of this stuff. And so why don't we get rid of it? Obviously, we're also in an age and in a generation where we're finally having a lot of these things online. And so I think in 50 years, there'll probably be significantly less paper in most people's homes because so many people have grown up with doing everything digitally that needing that paper safety net just in case somehow they can't access their computer or do different things won't be a thing at all for almost anybody. Whereas right now you have some people who are distrustful of having everything online and really want a paper file because that's what they grew up with, and other people who kind of want to mix. And so I'm sure you see a lot of different variations of what people are keeping and how much of it.
Actually, that's another interesting segment that goes hand in hand with tackling paper clutter is also the concept. This is something we talk a lot with clients on the paper day is how are you managing all your passwords? Like, where are all your bank accounts? Do you have a person in your family, your executive of your estate? Is there, if you were hit by a bus today, how is someone going to figure out that you have a Chase account or a Wells Fargo account or where you have your investments? Do you have your life organized? And I think that's where tackling paper clutter is. It's a branch of that same tree of, okay, yeah, do you have your passports organized and your marriage license or your different licenses and things and those items? But like, what softwares are you using to manage those passwords? My parents are actually leaving for Israel tomorrow and they're going for a couple of weeks. And we all know that there's a folder in my dad's desk. Now the whole world's going to know in his desk that has like his master password that gets into this bigger password software system that has every single account, and it's all categorized by these are all of our medical doctors, these are all of this is all of this, these are our estate documents, this is the lawyer that you contact, this is this. My dad is very buttoned up. It's really simple. If they get killed in a plane crash, we know where the money is. But for most people, I don't think they can say that if you are a wealthy enough family, you probably have a asset manager or
Sure.
family like
Family
attorney
office.
or someone who
Yeah.
probably got a family office who's helping you maybe in some form or fashion with some of these documents. But I think for the average person, this is a hot mess. So
Yeah.
I think, go ahead.
No, say there's a lot of things that the average-ish person or middle-class person or whatever income category you're on can't do that super wealthy people can't do. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't potentially take some of the tactics that they do and try to put them into place, right? There's a reason that they have a family office, have these things organized. It's not by accident. And yeah, you can't maybe hire someone out to do it all for you in some cases, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't have your own system, have like your dad has, and uh, have everything organized so that way, in the case of a tragedy, your loved ones, while going through that part of it, don't have to struggle with figuring out what to do for getting your bills paid. Because if it's not dying in a plane crash, but it's, hey, you're going to be injured for a while, hey, let's make sure bills continue getting paid so that the house doesn't have late payments on it and different things. And so being
100%.
organized, but also bringing other people into that circle so that way the way there are contingencies when things don't go according to plan, like getting sick, that you have ways to manage those situations.
So there's a couple things that we actually use that if you will, that we give clients. One of them is a software program called LastPass, and there's lots of programs like this, apps that you can download, and a lot of them are pretty inexpensive on an annual cost. And so LastPass is really interesting because you can have a single plan, a family plan, and it just sits on your computer as an extension on your browser and just auto captures passwords. And then you can categorize them by financial institutions, medical institutions, schools, utilities for your house, anything. So that's a really good app or just type of app to have that everyone should have in their life to help them manage their passwords. Obviously, you could be old school and have just like an Excel spreadsheet or something or a Google Doc. Probably wouldn't recommend Google, but an Excel spreadsheet of all those by like company and then password and then login and then account type and contact information for those companies is needed. To your point, in that event that something happens, what are the contact information for those loved ones? But then also, that's another big one. And so we actually have a template that we give clients. It's a Google Doc that we encourage them to copy and drop down into an Excel spreadsheet. I don't recommend keeping passwords in Google on the cloud, but it categorizes things out into a medical tab, a house tab, because that's a lot. That's a big thing, is so many of our utilities these days are on auto draft, and many of them actually require that when you sign up. And I think a lot of them are pretty good about sending like a monthly email that like, hey, your bill was $120 this month and it auto drafted on this date, or but not all of them do. So to your point, to even track that information down and figure out how much you're paying for even your monthly budget or to just like how to manage that can be really difficult. So it's really important to, I think, just have a plan in place for how you're going to organize these things. And especially if you're someone who has, let's just say, even like medical issues or a medical issue, how are you organizing that paperwork? How are you keeping track of like your annual blood work or your annual blood pressure or whatever that is, to then see over time how those things are changing, especially if you're seeing multiple doctors, right? If you just have a PCP, they're probably tracking that specific data in their database. But if you have a neurologist and a foot doctor or something. So anyway, I know we're talking about paper, but like all these things really come into play because all of those things create paper.
Sure. They create paper, and right, if you have good things set up like LastPass, you can maybe get rid of some paper, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
feel confident and comfortable in the digital world and the things online, that may free some people up to get rid of some of the things that they're saving because they know they have a way to for them to get access to it, but then also for other people. You talk about LastPass, which is something I do have as well too. Cool thing about it is they'll actually set up harder passwords for different things than you normally would, but
Mm-hmm.
but without you having to always remember what those tricky, more kind of encrypted types of passwords are for things, and
Well,
then
and then
allows people to potentially access stuff on different devices, right? It's great if you save all your passwords on your computer, but if someone can't get into your computer, suddenly they don't have access to the information they need.
exactly. No, and LastPass has that. You assign, and again, this is just one example. There's so many out there, but you assign like a executor or a person. Like in an emergency, this person can get access into your account for sure. But on what you were just talking about, there's actually a study that showed, what was it? It was like by going paperless, you can save an average of 6 minutes per transaction. And if you pay more than 10 bills per month, your utility bill, your credit card bills, etc., it can save you 90 minutes per month. And then another really interesting factoid is the average American receives 848 pieces of junk mail per year. That's a lot of paper that's coming
Yeah.
into your house. So that's why it's so important to have a plan for how you're going to tackle all those little things that are walking through your door. That's how clutter starts, right? That's how anxiety and stress and just this massive pile on the kitchen counter starts, which we see all the time at clients' homes. And so one of the things we also recommend is wherever you get your mail, keep a little like trash can in, let's just say you enter through the garage. A lot of Americans, I feel like, don't enter through their front door. They enter through their garage, right? When you park your car. And so keep a little trash can by the door. And before you even walk through your house, it's pretty easy. What, two pieces of mail
Yeah.
these days out of the whole bunch is even something important? Drop all of it in the recycle bin and just walk through the door with only the two pieces that even might mean anything.
Yep. No, I grab the mail at the mailbox, sort and get in the car, take a look at it. Oh, these are the ones that I need. These are the ones that I don't. And so then it's a lot easier to.
Yep.
It usually still makes it into the house to make it into the garbage can or recycle bin that way. But yeah, like that's an easy
If the
way.
government really cared about recycling, we'd probably have recycle bins set up next to mailboxes.
Yeah, as we were talking about, which I think our idea deserves some recognition here about we need to get anyone who's all about the green energy and really into
If
saving
you
stuff that
voted
way.
for no plastic straws, this is for you.
Yeah, if you voted for no plastic straws, you need to get legislation that we should just get rid of junk mail. Like, I think that would
Yep.
get very unanimous support on both sides of the aisle. You would save however many trees, however much time and man hours of people having to deliver stuff, the shipping costs of things all over the place, and none of us, then we could just not have junk mail. Like, that would be,
Yeah.
I don't,
It would
obviously there
reduce
are
so
some
much clutter.
yeah, obviously there are some companies out there that wouldn't be happy because they couldn't use that as a way to try to market to us, but there's plenty of other ways for them to get in front of our eyeballs to market their products. And this way
I would
would
be
be
so curious how many people even check. Like, I never even look at junk
a
mail. I
lot of
don't
it I
even
don't.
know
No,
that
again,
any of
I
that
don't it's not
branding,
yeah,
marketing
it's
is
not a very
wasted on
good
me.
form of marketing in my opinion, but it obviously has some value or companies wouldn't do it at all, you would think, unless they just are so used to doing it from years and years of when it worked, perhaps. But yeah, like it could just be all gotten rid of, right? Like even the grocery list you get from HEB, they could shoot out an email saying, "Hey, here's what's for sale this week at HEB" and stuff. There's just all of that stuff could go away, would be good all around.
It would just save all of us so much time, so much energy, and honestly, a lot of money. There was actually another interesting study by Brother International Corporation that found that the average American spends 1 year of their life looking for lost or misplaced items, which results in obviously a ton of lost productivity and can have huge negative financial consequences as well if you're spending that much of your time just looking for things. And then how much of that time is also just looking for certain paperwork or your passport or your auto renewal documents that came in the mail that, oh no, now I'm getting pulled over because I haven't gone to the inspection and upgraded my car
Right.
date or whatever it
Yeah.
is.
No, like you get your inspection notice like 60 days out or something like that, and then suddenly you're like, oh shoot, I actually have to do that. Which, by the way,
Yeah,
mine's been expired for the last 2 days, so I need to go do that. Very on
put it
topic
on your
that way.
calendar.
Yeah, put in the calendar to do tomorrow. Yeah, no, it is again, it's kind of like when you step back and think about it, like just all the little decisions and little bits of organizing that we have to do throughout the day that we do on autopilot, right? Like as far as like getting the mail, groceries, bills, all these different kind of things. There's just a lot more decisions that we have to make every
Well,
minute, it feels like, than we ever
and
have.
there's another big one that we haven't talked about. Emails.
Yeah.
Emails are like the new
Yes.
paperwork and like obviously so much junk mail in there.
It's gonna be harder
Um,
to get, it's gonna be harder to get the people who voted out plastic straws to also vote out junk mail because it doesn't have the same environmental impact that way. But yes, no, like I'm considering, like, is it time to change to a new email address so I can just have the important things get forwarded to that email and leave the rest of my old emails for all the junk stuff versus trying to clean it up? Because like
okay.
trying to like unsubscribe from stuff that's not no longer valuable is
Wait, are
impossible.
you one of those people that never unsubscribes to things? I unsubscribe to something every single day, probably multiple things a day.
I do sometimes, but it still feels like there's just such a mountain of stuff that you get sent that it feels challenging. But it has been a goal of mine to try to do that a few times, at least if not every day, to try to, as I'm going through it, if I can set a little bit of time, hey, let's actually unsubscribe from it rather than just deleting it. So hopefully this doesn't continue to clog up the email inbox.
Yep. No, definitely. I think the same way that there's an issue around like paper management, password management, it's very similar with email management. I'm someone who manages my inbox so that the only things in my inbox are tasks and like things that I need to tackle and things that I need to do. I delete things, I unsubscribe to things, I file things in folders, and it just helps me have a clear idea of what I actually need to do and not feel so overwhelmed when I look at my inbox. But I have friends who don't delete anything from their inbox. And it's one ways that they do it is anything that has like a dot next to it, anything they haven't checked
Sure.
is one of their like to do items. And I'm like, that just sounds so overwhelming to me to go to my inbox and see thousands, like 20,000 emails. Like, oh my gosh, I'm
Mine's
just
posted that way. Like
all
I'll
over.
definitely go back and like mark something back as unread. If I read something, I'm like, oh, I need to get to that, but I can't do it right now. I'll go back and make sure it's marked unread and keep it in the inbox and then kind of go from there. But if it's something, there are some things I will file other places and then plenty of stuff that I delete as well too. But like if there's something that gets done, I don't generally take it out of the inbox. I just know that it's, since it's marked as read, that it's not something that I have to consider anymore.
Yeah. So I think,
Probably not the most. I'm sure as as a professional organizer, you're like,
I think I
there's
need to come check out your inbox.
so many better ways.
I think it's safe to say, though, whether we're talking about passwords or paper and junk mail or emails and junk mail and emails and unsubscribing for things, there is a plethora of information like coming at us these days, and there needs to be a way to organize it. And there's so many options out there. There's no one size fits all solution, but I think some easy steps that everyone could take with paperwork at minimum is just don't even allow the junk mail to walk through the door. Like just have a system for getting that straight into the recycling bin every day or however often you check the mail so that you walk through the door only with items that truly need your attention. And then it's really a good practice to open that mail immediately and then also find out, because typically, even from the mail that you walk through the door with, there might only still be one or two items from there that are really important. There could be some more junk mail hiding in there or something that doesn't need action. And if something needs action, whether you have a special place on your desk, you have a little bulletin board or magnet board somewhere where you pin those things up to make sure they're in your face so that you remember to take care of them. That's a good way for at least starting to tackle the paper. But then, as far as the tasks and the monthly bills and then the passwords, put things on go paperless, put things on auto pay and add those as a calendar invite as well to your calendar so that you have that reminder. I have calendar invites that I don't know, my auto payment drafts on the third every month and it drafts from this account and this much and everything. So like it's still a reminder on your calendar and in your view that this is happening. And then hopefully you also get some kind of email follow up. Reduce the paperwork that comes into your house, go paperless, and add a software of or an Excel spreadsheet or something for managing and tracking those passwords, and then give someone access to that. So some loved one or trusted lawyer or someone so that yes, have a plan that in the event if something happens to you, you're saving your loved ones a lot of anxiety and extra grief if those things are properly organized and managed. And then there's so many different ways to tackle it, but have some kind of idea of how you're going to operate your inbox, because we are same concept. We are just thrown so much information every single day. And so having a system for how you manage and unsubscribe to things, or how you figure out what things are important, will really save you a lot of time, energy, and money.
Yeah. And there are actually, I'm trying to think, there's a program, I want to say it's called Uproll, I think is what it is, that
Hmm.
you can subscribe to that specifically does that. It filters some of your stuff and lets you very easily unsubscribe from email. And I want to say it's Uproll. But there are programs out there that kind of help you to, again, unsubscribe from email. So that way it'll help manage your inbox a little bit more as
And I
well.
think some email boxes are getting smarter about that. Like I know
Yeah.
Apple has it at the very top that, do you want to unsubscribe to this? Even if it's something that I actually don't want to unsubscribe to. Like anything that you have a subscription to, like a lot of the
Yeah.
mailboxes are getting smarter about that for
Yep.
sure.
Definitely. Cool.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's a good list of tasks to give the audience for getting a little bit more organized
We have a
for
lot
next.
to do.
Yeah, there's your to-do list, right? Appreciate you taking the time to jump on. I know they know your week's been a little hectic, and so really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, of course. It's always a pleasure. So thank you.
Hope everyone has a wonderful day.